It is a time of confusion and realigned loyalty. We have many heads, but we act as one. One legion with a single will. We are a union of the alike and the like-minded. We will not tolerate treachery. We will not allow our compact to fracture. We will not suffer the short-sightedness of our brother legions, nor the averted gaze of the wider Imperium. We are the Alpha Legion, and we take the long view. Each legion of the first founding of the Adeptus Astartes specialize in a strategic aspect of waging war. Some are renowned for their skill at siegecraft and fortification. Others are revered for their use of maneuverability, savagery, or skill at arms. Yet few are known for their cunning, and only one of their number is infamous for their use of secrecy, sabotage, and espionage. The 20th Legion of the Adeptus Astartes, the Alpha Legion. Known as the Ghost Legion during their early deployment during the Great Crusade, the 20th Legion would be the last to be crafted of the first founding, according to conventional records of the Imperium. However, as is the case for most of the Legion's history, much of it is shrouded in conspiracy, redacted records, and misinformation. Other remembrances claim their inception to be prior to any of the legions in a prototypical form. What is known is that the Emperor of Mankind would construct the Legion in total secrecy, with even the Legion's gene seed information being kept a priority secret. Alike to their kindred trefoil of the Salamanders and Space Wolves, the 20th Legion would be formed in separation from the other first founding armies to enable their deployment for specific strategic operations. Their early service as a legion characterized by abductions, assassinations, targeted strikes, and espionage missions on Holy Terror, the Legion would seemingly operate without any command from the discovered Primarchs of the Imperium, their designation known only as Alpha. Though it is believed by the wider Imperium that the Legion's Primarch known as Alpharius would be the last of the Emperor's sons to be discovered, accounts from the Primarch's own hand allude to his discovery prior to that of even the vaunted first Primarch, Horus Lupercal. Commanding his legion from the shadows, if the records of the Primarch are to be believed, his existence would be known only to a select few of the Imperium. The Emperor, Malcador the Sigillite, and commander of the Adeptus Custodes, Constantin Valdor. Alpharius claims to have even been involved in the culling of the ill-fated Thunder Warriors under the guise of the Dark Angels Legion. Should these records be accurate, the Emperor of Mankind would nonetheless refuse to expand the ranks of the Alpha Legion, constraining their ranks to an estimation of 2,000 Astartes. Their gene seed either too valuable to squander on vast deployments, or burdened with a potential flaw in its gene encoding. Some speculate that the Alpha Legion would undergo further augmentations by the Emperor's own hand, unique to their legion, though this speculation cannot be verified. Used sparingly and with great specificity during the remainder of the Great Crusade, records of the Legion would be scarce. Often designated as a legion with no heraldry or identification markings, or even as impostors garbed in the color of other legions, their acts of subterfuge would cause great resentment and distrust amongst their cousin Astartes. Whilst never leaving witnesses or tangible evidence of their involvement, the Alpha Legion's reputation as the Ghost Legion would spread as a force capable of bleeding their enemies slowly yet absolutely. Their tactic of overwhelming confusion and lightning-quick lethality, designated as the Harrowing. Apathetic to the praise so cherished by the other legions of the Adeptus Astartes and their Primarchs, the Alpha Legion would attend to their duties with the sole purpose of furthering their own gains and fulfilling their duty to the Emperor. Their first joint operation with their fellow Astartes legions, beginning with the Dark Angels during the Rangdan Xenocides. Primarch of the first, Lionel Johnson, would parley with a representative of the 20th Legion, Alpharius. Feigning his true identity as the Primarch of the Legion, Alpharius would claim the Legion to be bereft of a Primarch's command, willing to offer their blades and bolters to the Lion to aid in his ascension as the potential candidate of the War Master of the Imperium. Their goals aligned to the Lion's practicality to utilize secrecy during war, more suited than the tactics of Roboute Guilliman or Horus Lupercal. Though in truth, this offer would be entirely self-serving to the 20th Legion's needs. Their alliance to the Dark Angels enabling the recovery of the twin brother of Primarch Alfarius from the Rangdan war zone, Omegon. With the twin Primarchs of the 20th Legion reunited, their fluidity in weaving shadows and trickery to achieve their goals would be bolstered. Embracing their Primarch's dual vision for the future, the Alpha Legion's use of misdirection would become peerless amongst any established army within the Imperium. Their continued mastery of deception forming strong rivalries between their more stoic peers, such as the Ultramarines, Imperial Fists, and Death Guard, with Primarch of the Night Lords, Conrad Kurz, commenting on the Alpha Legion that they were sinners in a shroud of lies, with all but the Lunar Wolves, Dark Angels, and Iron Hands campaigning successfully in cooperation with the Alpha Legion without incident. Spinning more elaborate webs of cunning, the Alpha Legion would garner many great victories throughout the Great Crusade, despite abandoning many Imperial practices and efficiencies to achieve their goals. With one such incident on Testra Prime, leading to the slow annihilation of the Defenders' forces with casualties of up to 90% in the campaign's peak. With Primarch Alfarius countering his criticism of the campaign being winnable with much more efficiency as too easy to achieve. Shunned by the Primarchs from this moment on, only War Master Horus Lupercal would defend and praise his brother's actions. Impressed with his capabilities at ensnaring and controlling his enemies with such skill. Yet for the rest of the Great Crusade, the Alpha Legion would recede back into the dark corners of the galaxy, their prowess in war proven beyond a shadow of a doubt, despite their fellow legions' misgivings. With the dawn of betrayal at the hands of the War Master, the Alpha Legion's loyalty to the Imperium of Man would be called into question. Yet the Alpha Legion would be contacted by the strange clandestine Xenos organization, the Cabal, prior to the Legion's involvement in the Civil War. Presented with two predictions of the future, it is claimed that this moment would fracture the Alpha Legion's path for the millennia to come. Given warning and understanding of the fell powers of chaos, the Cabal would show Alfarius Omegon the first of two futures. The Emperor would endure the Great Civil War across the stars, but with his victory, his species would be cursed with 10, perhaps 20,000 years of decay and suffering, until their inevitable destruction by the forces of the ruinous powers. Yet should Horus Lupercal succeed, humanity would perish and drag the forces of chaos into their oblivion, salvaging the galaxy in the process. Torn between allegiance to their father and the survival of the galaxy, it is unclear as to the intent of the Primarchs. All that is of import is their decision to side with the traitor legions. With the betrayal of Horus Lupercal relayed to the Emperor of Mankind, the Alpha Legion would be sent to crush the traitor forces stationed at the planet of Istvan V. Adding their strength to the second wave of assault, the initial wave of destruction to bring the traitors to heel would be fought by the Iron Hands, Salamanders, and Raven Guard legions. Yet alike to the rest of the assault's reinforcements, the Iron Warriors, Night Lords, and Wordbearers, the Alpha Legion would turn on their loyalist brothers, though not without contradictions in their methods. Allowing the Raven Guard and their Primarch Corvus Corax to escape their blockade of the planet, the Alpha Legion's loyalty to their traitorous brothers would be called into question. Combating a World Eater's battle barge in the process of allowing the Raven Guard to escape, the Alpha Legion would explain to the War Master that they had infiltrated the ranks of the Loyalist Legion. Using sleeper cell individuals within the Raven Guard, the Alpha Legion would ingest the brains of the fallen and graft their flesh onto their faces, gleaning knowledge of their phantom identities and allowing their seamless integration into the 19th Legion. Distrustful of their methods of war upon hearing Alfarius' explanation to their goals, the War Master would command his own legion to be screened for imposters within their ranks. For the 20th Legion had shown themselves to be self-serving in the extreme, and willing to defy the orders of the War Master should they see an opportunity. Distancing themselves from the traitors to the throne, the Alpha Legion would attend to a series of interferences to delay the other Astartes legions from engaging the wider conflict. Blockading the White Scars at the Chondak system, Primarchs Alfarius Omegan would ignore their orders from the War Master to recruit the White Scars into the fold of the traitors. Baiting them into combating their own forces, it is unclear if this decision was used to bolster the White Scars' allegiance to the throne, with Omegon commanding an assault of his own forces that occupied a pylon array, preventing communications between the White Scars and Holy Terror. For this would not be the only time the Alpha Legion would combat its own forces, with Alfarius manipulating the Shattered Legion strike force under the command of Iron Hand, Shadrach Medusan, to attack his own forces. The Primarchs spinning their own legion of Astartes, whether to weed out men of conflicting loyalties, or to enable plausible deniability when scrutinized by the War Master. Such machinations cannot be known outside the command of the Alpha Legion. Though for the remainder of the heresy, not one Astartes of the 20th Legion would attempt to engage the Loyalists on the throne world of Holy Terror. Due to this fact, it is unknown where their true allegiances lie, with each act of aid to the Imperium countered by betrayal, such as the attempted assassination of Primarch Rabute Guilliman. And for each named incidence of Alfarius, there are conflicting sources of his presence in systems leagues away. Reports claim the death of Alfarius during the Battle of Pluto against Primarch Rogel Dawn, whilst others claim the death to be his twin brother, Omegon. All that can be said in truth are aspersions and half-truths, even following the Horus heresy into the Scouring and beyond. Unlike their traitor brethren, the Alpha Legion would not retreat into the Eye of Terror with the fall of their War Master, Horus Lupercal. Reorganizing in the galactic east, the Alpha Legion would be hounded by the Ultramarines to the planet of Escredor. Outmaneuvered by Primarch Rabute Guilliman, reports suggest that Alfarius Omegan was once again slain at the hands of a Primarch. Yet despite such a seemingly critical blow to the Alpha Legion, the Ultramarines would nonetheless be driven from the conflict, the Alpha Legion fracturing into smaller autonomous warbands following the battle and seeming loss of their second Primarch. Forming secret bases on asteroid fields, space hulks, and dark corners of the galaxy, the Alpha Legion continues its service by harassing garrisons, ships, and settlements across the Imperium, instigating chaos cult uprisings across many worlds. Those whom claim the benevolent intent of the Alpha Legion find much to contradict their claims. For with the fracturing of the Legion into warbands, seemingly without the leadership of the Primarchs, it is unclear as to where any one warband's allegiance truly lies. Whether as double agents intent on the survival of the Imperium, veiled instigators of the death of the Emperor and destruction of chaos, or pawns in the great game of the ruinous powers. Declared exterminated by the High Lords of Terror and Inquisition on no less than 3 instances, the Alpha Legion continues to survive as both loyal sons of the Imperium and duplicitous servants of chaos in equal measure, warring not only against the galaxy, but their own ranks. The Alpha Legion's command structure, much like their history, is mired in contradiction and mystery, with only their armor colorings of somewhat reliable consistency. Incorporating scale-like designs of a serpent into their armor, the Alpha Legion primarily mimic the color scheme of their Primarch Alfarius, azure blue, silver, and emerald green, further changing the aesthetics of their skin, such as the face with tattoos of the Hydra. With those still standing defiant to the law of chaos within the Legion, wearing their armor colors as a testament of their loyalty to their Primarch's vision and principles. Their heraldry and livery kept intentionally sparse to keep their enemies from ascertaining command structure, high-valued targets, and other useful information. Their aims to misdirect their enemies, preventing their hosts and cohorts from fracturing with the loss of an individual Space Marine. Sometimes changing their standard color scheme to pale grays, purples, bronze hues, and other disparate designs to continually confuse their adversaries. Though some signs of subtle command structure can be gleaned from their armor designs on occasion, such as the ever-increasingly delicate engravings of serpents of the Alpha Legion's arm plating to denote rank. Yet many speculate that not even the Legion's Primarch Alfarius knew the full extent of his Legion's command structure. crafting an innately unknowable organization to confound even their own members whom pried too deep. Yet there do exist champions of the Legion, donned in cloaks of scales, these badges of prestige reclaimed from the fallen, and reused by their fellow battle brothers. Whether these champions are true masters of the blade or merely distractions to further confound their enemies is unknown. Comprising much alike to other Astartes prior to the Scouring, the Alpha Legion would nonetheless change the naming conventions of their divisions. Companies would be known as harrows, battalions as cohorts, and chapters known as hosts, though even these naming conventions would be continually broken down and reorganized over time. Recruitment within the Legion determined not on an individual basis, the operatives of the Alpha Legion would succeed on a squad basis. Eschewing personal glory or heroics, the Alpha Legion would function as a highly organized, cohesive organization. Decisions and strategies would be conducted in democratic debate, with non-Astartes operatives allowed to voice disagreement and insight, a trait unique amongst the 20th being their tendency to recruit many non-Astartes operatives to bolster their Legion's ability to infiltrate and influence all facets of society and enemy command structures, even reintegrating compromised operatives where possible to retain their skills and experience. Employing highly specialized equipment, the Alpha Legion would be characterized for their use of specialized bolter rounds, cloaking technologies, chameleon shrouds, and specialized armor configurations. Highly autonomous in nature and adapting to the assassinations and deaths of command staff, the Alpha Legion has an uncanny ability to adapt and survive from almost any setback, giving credence to the Legion's choice of avatar as the multi-headed mythical beast, the Hydra. For should the head of the Hydra be severed, more shall sprout in its place. I am Alpharius. I am Alpharius. We are all Alpharius. We are the Alpha Legion, and we are all one. This has been a tale of the great Imperium of Man, read by the Remembrancer. It is an impossible task to know the inner workings of the Alpha Legion, yet I hope what you have gleaned of this transmission shall aid in our collective understanding, however slight. Yet the time draws near to elucidate another chapter of the Adeptus Astartes, whom are much easier to observe, if not understand. The traitorous hedonists of the ruinous powers, the Emperor's children.